Welcome to Citizen Cinema, the only podcast to win a gold medal during the 2014 Sochi Olympics. I'm Alex.
I'm Andres.
And today we're talking about, I don't know, actually.
So, would you like to introduce the drink or the subject first?
Well, considering it both came from your mind, I think it's a good idea for you to come in. Clearly, you're enjoying it.
I'm loving it. All right. I'll reveal the subject first.
All right, fair enough.
Now, Alex, I'm going to ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
What makes something a genre to you? What are the deciding characteristics of a genre?
Bro, are we getting into philosophy now?
Absolutely not.
Okay. A genre. See, this is interesting. This is interesting because I have been thinking about this in terms of music for quite some time as we see more and more genre bending kind of show up. So if I had to define what a genre is with no warning or heads up, I would probably say it's a category. It's just merely a useful category by which we define various, I guess, elements can be shared throughout a given source of media. Is that broad enough for you?
That is way broader than I was picturing.
Hoping.
It's okay. So let me ask you this now. So
Okay.
specifically to film,
Yeah.
what makes film genre? So like, is it the content matter or what for you? Themes?
Yeah. I guess
Characters?
themes, I would imagine kind of like story arcs would have to share similar kind of beats. Regardless of, I guess, how long they are, you have like a similar kind of beat. For instance, if you're looking at something like a rom-com, there's going to be the individual stories, they meet somehow, and then they, there's it's real cute, and then there's some drama, and then they get back together, happy ending. So you have like those beats within a movie that I think define whether they fit within the same genre or not. Is that fair enough?
That's so fair.
Yeah.
So, my question for you today, the topic that we are going to discuss is slice of life. Is it a genre? And if it is, can it stay a genre? So,
Okay.
when you think slice of life,
That makes sense given the movies that you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when you think slice of life, or when a general person thinks slice of life, I think a lot of people automatically go to anime. Because
Yeah, fair
slice of life anime, for all the uwu boys and girls out there.
Yeah.
But I'm going to read this definition of slice of life from a list on Letterboxd that I was looking at when I
Reliable source of information.
when I was trying to give you your homework.
Okay.
So this list says the relationship between the characters and the way they respond to their environment becomes the story itself. There is no build-up. It's just a series of coincidences. Life, and sometimes it's bland or meaningless, like a series of fleeting feelings with no logical construct.
Hence, no beats, really, given my definition of a genre.
Right.
So, interesting. For context, the movies that Andreas asked me to watch for this were Tokyo Story, Yee Yee, I think is how you pronounce it, right?
Yee,
Yee
yeah.
Yee?
Yeah.
Boyhood, and Do the Right Thing, which I will say Do the Right Thing was really the one that threw me a loop when I was trying to decide, or I was trying to sleuth out what your topic was, because it felt the least slice of lifey to me, because there was actually a climax.
There's a climax, but before that climax and before that big conflict at the end, what's the motivation?
You're so right. And before we sip on those details, why don't you talk about the drink that we're sipping on?
Yes. So today we are drinking a Lychee sake martini. Now this is going to be with lychee sake and just a little bit of gin. If you want a better product, I would recommend using lychee liqour as an additional ingredient, and then regular sake. Our local liquor store, Total Wine, did not have lychee liqueur. So we're working with what we got. This is a lychee sake and gin. Those are the only two ingredients. It's not crazy.
It's really not. Don't judge our scuffed cocktails.
No,
We're doing our best here.
but let me tell you, this thing is really slapping me in the face.
Yeah, it really is.
I'm frantically trying to drink more from it because I just don't want to be so nervous while holding it.
Audience at home, you should have seen the way Andreas tried to carry this cocktail upstairs. It was heartbreaking.
Bro, all I'm saying is, once we really take off, this is on y'all, by the way, the audience out there. This is your burden.
Yeah.
The first thing we're investing in is an upstairs bar, so I don't have to carry a full martini
Yeah.
upstairs.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's fair.
But all right. So first and foremost, I want to hear your thoughts specifically on the movies I assigned, and we can start with Do the Right Thing.
Sure.
Oh,
I do want to say you gave me extra options. I was able to also watch American Graffiti. So I did watch
sick.
that as well.
Okay, cool. Yeah. That's the kind of movies we'd be getting from George Lucas if he never made Star Wars.
When I found out that George Lucas directed that movie and that Harrison Ford was in it,
Dude, yeah.
I was like, yo, that's crazy. Because like I've heard about American Graffiti for forever, but just had never watched it. It's not on like TLC when I was sick at home growing up, believe it or not. So, yeah. So that was that was a crazy discovery. Anyways, I do want to start with Do the Right Thing because it's actually the first movie off of your list that I watched. And can I just say, I was so severely unprepared for the section in the middle of this movie where it's just back to back very racial rants.
Bro, yeah.
Yeah. I was home alone and my jaw was on the floor. Boy, they're not afraid to go there and introduce characters that I hadn't even thought about, like they, because they're going through all of the different like sections of races that are represented within the movie. And then there's this like a side character that comes in that was just there for like a half a scene earlier in the movie, and all of a sudden they're chiming in and they've got some stuff to say about the next race. Shocking.
Bro, dude, yeah. I guess Spike Lee had a lot on his mind that he wanted to let out. I don't know, but
yep, I would say so. I will say that it was I will say that I liked it. I liked it a lot. I thought it was very like stylized. There were a lot of like iconic lines and imagery. It was very like bright and in your face, pretty much the entire time. I found it like, if we're gonna call it a slice of life movie, like a very almost kind of like action packed, but in terms of dialogue, I don't like punchy, I guess you could say, a very punchy slice of life.
Well, it's punchy in the closing minutes too, like
Sure is.
Literal punches.
Well, yeah, people fight.
Yeah, there's a rumble,
to say the least.
But I mean, I think it very much fits in the definition of slice of life. The setting is a character.
Yeah.
The area that the restaurant's in, block that he's constantly walking up and down. Also, I just want to say how shit he is at his job.
Yeah.
Bro, like,
yeah,
goes
really
home to take a shower, stops at his girl's place.
Yeah, he
like,
does not give a fuck about that job.
But I'm a very firm believer that this movie should be mandatory watching for at every school.
I think I actually saw that in your Letterboxd review.
Yeah, it should be mandatory viewing, bro. Like it's a very.
So back up that claim. I'm not saying I disagree with you, but back up that claim.
I will back that up.
All right, back it up.
I think when we're in school, quote unquote, learning about racism or what they allow us to talk about, to not make the country look bad.
Right. Well, that's a whole other conversation, but yes, it's
very sugar-coated, whitewashed, all that jazz. I think it's important to hear it from the perspective of the people actually receiving the racism, and in the way that this film does, where it's just it shows you exactly what you would see. So I just think it has a lot to say.
Yeah.
And we should listen.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I mean, I will, I do agree with you because I think there's a big difference between the racism that you see in Do the Right Thing versus the racism that you might see in say like, for example, like a Django Unchained or something like that, where there's like revenge porn or there's race. I mean, I think one of the things that I actually really appreciated about it was the fact that it was very universal in its racism.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't just telling like the black versus white story.
Mm-hmm.
It was telling although that was certainly the focus, it was
Mm-hmm.
like black versus Italian, I guess you could say. But it referenced everything that was going on. It was just rampant and in your face and fairly well evenly represented, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
Which is something that I just don't think you see very often.
Yeah. And then you had the Asian corner store across the street
Yep.
too, who are receiving racism, and it covers a lot of fronts. And it doesn't like try to twist anything. It just says this is how it is.
Yep.
Look at it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It makes you look at it
Mm-hmm.
through like the giant conflict at the end of the film, through everything sprinkled throughout it's just it just tells you how it is. But reeling it back into the slice of life part of things. So the reason I picked this, like I said, the setting is very much a character.
Right.
There is no the way I decide if something's a slice of life movie usually is I go, is there a giant bomb they have to defuse? Is there a monster attacking Earth? Is there,
Sure.
and not in the literal sense, but like, is there a big conflict like that?
Right.
And there is a conflict in the film, the conflict of racism, but it's just literally a day in the life. The homie is just working through a shift,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Slice of life doesn't have a happy ending.
Yeah. It's just literally how life is.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I also, when I picked these for you, I thought it was really important that I picked half Western cinema and half Eastern cinema.
Yeah.
And
I
their
appreciate
approaches
that.
to slice of life.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, I'll use that as a segue to go into the next film I want to talk about. And Alex Powell, I'm about to go in on you, bro.
I know, dude.
All right, if y'all remember how Alex came at me for saying The Sound of Music was a 3.5, I asked him to watch Tokyo Story. Yasujiro Ozu's masterpiece, recently voted the 4th best film of all time by Sight and Sound. And he gave it a 3.5, which I understand why people would. It is slow.
Yeah.
It's very slow. All of Ozu's work is slow, but I thought it was really important to pick an Ozu movie for you to watch because in my head, he's the guy who really made slice of life like a thing in cinema. And Tokyo Story is the most slice of life as you can get.
You're not wrong about that. Okay, so allow me to explain, right? Put me on the stand. Y'all will be my jury. The reason why I put Tokyo Story as 3.5 is because it's not even necessarily because it was slow per se, although you might disagree with that after this next statement. It's that it took me 30 minutes into the movie to even know what it was about. You know, like at least with the other 3, or I guess 4, because American Graffiti that I watched, I knew what they were about pretty early on. But with Tokyo Story, it took me 30 minutes to not only know what the movie was actually about, because I like to kind of go in blind, but also 30 minutes to even figure out who the characters really were to each other. And like it's pretty obvious, grandparents are grandparents, but it's like it focuses around this family, and I like, okay, allow me to also say I probably went with like more of a personal feeling rating as opposed to like an objective rating for this movie, but it's just not something that I think I would watch again. But to be fair, slice of life is also not necessarily my forte in the first place.
That's fair. That's super fair.
Which is, I think, more just telling about how I preferred, I guess, the movies that I personally prefer, right? I think I let that get in the way a little bit, but also it was a little bit of a vengeance.
Fair. It was preemptive.
Yeah.
It was motivated, premeditated. So for me, I think that's this movie is, well, for me, I'm just gonna go ahead and put my bias out there. This movie's in like my top 10 movies of all time.
Sure.
I think so. How you said how it took you about 30 minutes to realize who was who and what their relationship was with everyone. That's something that I think is beautiful about the movie. there's no information dumping at all.
Yeah.
You
That's fair.
you have that problem with a lot of films these days, or even back in the day too, where it was just, let me dump this info because it's convenient for the plot, and then I'm not doing things to motivate the story. I'm
Take the
doing,
Star Wars approach and literally just give the prologue and all of the
yeah,
information in
dude.
text up front.
Where this is literally all of their conversations were exactly as they would be in real life.
Yeah.
And I think there's just something so beautiful about Ozu just putting down the camera, leaving it untouched for five, I don't know how many minutes at a time, and just block the scene and then just have the characters do their conversation.
Yeah.
When we watched the end of Yi together, you had made a comment about how you thought it was cool how the shots lingered and
Mm-hmm.
everything like that. I feel the same way about Tokyo Story. How, you know, the grandparents will get up and walk away from the room, but it doesn't cut right away.
Right.
There's no ADHD editing, you
Yeah.
know, which,
Yeah.
and you can say, well, older films were always like that. Well, that's not exactly true.
No.
In older films, before the French New Wave, really, you had formulas on how things were meant to be shot, meant to be cut. You go 2-shot, oneer, 2-shot, wide, mid, whatever, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas Tokyo Story, Ozu can just put down the camera, let it roll. They do the scene, and it's beautiful. Also, that is the movie that motivated the cocktail, because of when they go, the grandpa goes with his old buddies.
Yeah, and they
to
go
get
drinking.
They get, bro,
They
and
get hammered.
and that poor bartender, bro.
Yeah.
She got harassed hard, and I
Yeah,
felt
she
so
did.
bad, but I don't know. I just think there's something really beautiful about making a 2-hour movie and just making it about everyday life, and also having a beautiful message, like you said in your letterbox review, about family and chosen family.
Yeah.
um
Yeah, and so allow me to preface this and my rating and all of that by really laying down a dynamic that we have not said at all throughout the course of this podcast. Andreas is the lifelong cinephile. I am a newer cinephile, so he has way more context. He has made films. It's his damn camera that we're shooting this on, right? So like he's gonna have a lot more historical context, and just like he has watched the stuff way more than I have. So if anything I ever say sounds like unjustifiable, it's because I'm like y'all. I just like movies, and I thought this would be fun. But specifically with Tokyo Story, what brought me, I guess, the beauty that I rendered from it was like personal attachment, which I guess really is kind of like the point of slice of life. It's how much can you attach this to your personal life? How much do you think that this relates to what you've gone through, and is it an accurate representation, right? So the idea in Tokyo Story between chosen family is that there is this, well, I guess widowed daughter-in-law, who is way more there for these grandparents as they visit the family, than any of the actual blood relative family members. And I've actually not gone through the same thing, but you know, I was my grandfather passed away several years ago, and he was, you know, my grandparents divorced when, I mean, before I was even born. So my grandmother-in-law and the entire section of the family that I was introduced to through her, after his death, we had to have a conversation about, not really a conversation, but it's just like we all collectively decided that it didn't matter whether we were blood relatives or not. We were family. And I saw that really, really beautifully represented in Tokyo Story. And that was impactful to me. And I think that is when deciding, I guess, whether or not slice of life is a genre and whether it's justifiable. I think that is the beauty there.
Mm-hmm.
How much it can relate to you as an individual. Is it an accurate representation? Because not everything needs to be romanced or actioned or ADHD cutted, you know, to death. That's never going to be what it really kind of looks like and feels like. And I think that is where Tokyo Story definitely takes off. I think that's its strength. So,
Alex, you're gonna make me cry.
dude, stop.
That
No.
was so beautiful. Oh my god.
I was just saying, like, I think I like that is the beauty of it.
Mm-hmm.
Is it? I mean, just being honest from the gut, is it my favorite movie? No. but I do think it was a beautiful representation of the story that it was trying to tell. And it's not even really a story. It's just like, I guess, a relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know?
Well, you know what? It doesn't matter if it's your favorite movie or not. You got something out of it, and that's the whole point.
Right.
Also, the fact that I don't like when people say, not that I don't like what you said, but when people are like, "Oh, I'm a newer cinephile, so I'm not gonna, know as much." Don't discredit yourself like that, bro.
Okay, fair enough.
You like what you like. You have your opinions.
Yeah.
The worst thing you can do is pretend to like things because people tell you you're supposed to.
Yeah, fair enough.
So I'm giving you shit, but like, don't take it personally.
Well, and that's another thing that I really wanted to do, or make sure I didn't, was I didn't want to give Tokyo 5 stars because, or Tokyo Story, 5 stars just because I saw that you did.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Fair. That's fair.
That seemed super incredulous and just like not the point of what we're doing with this podcast at all.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Valid. All right. So the next movie I asked you to watch was Yi.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I didn't see you actually log this on Letterboxd. So
That's actually because I just did yesterday.
Okay.
I was late. I gave it 4.5.
Okay, sick.
Yeah.
So I want to hear we watched the last 30 minutes together.
Mm-hmm.
I want to hear your full thoughts, and then I'll chime in with what I want to say about it.
Okay, so Yi, I thought was, and again, I am saying that right? Because it feels weird. It feels weird coming out of my mouth. Okay, Yi.
It means, I think the translation is 1 and 2, like a 1 and a 2.
Okay, gotcha. So I thought, first of all, I did want a little bit more. What's the little boy's name? Yang.
Bro, I would take a bullet for Yang.
I always want more Yang. I loved the Astro Boy representation. Mm-hmm. I thought that Yi was. It's actually really hard to put into words, which is I think a reason why I didn't actually leave I left my rating
but
review,
but
I didn't write anything because it's very hard. I thought that one of the things that I actually mentioned to you was that it kind of to me was reminiscent of some of the tropes that I see from earlier Western film in terms of like some of the big action, for instance, like the big, I guess, I don't know, action that happens at the end with the like shooting that happens completely off screen, and then we just like come back to essentially like the devastation or the impact of that event. And there was the lingering camera, and it just kind of felt really like I felt like I wasn't watching a movie, but I was there, you know, which I thought was really, really well done in terms of like the relationships and stuff like that. I definitely felt like certain characters deserve better. Like NJ is just such a like giving up his love, you know, to go back to his wife who like cheated on him while he was gone, and then we just don't even get really, you know, there was so many dynamics, and it was representative of some of the mess that I've seen in, well, not my personal life, thank God, but other people's lives. And I did think that it was really, really well done. And I think that what I saw out of Yi more than I saw out of really any of the other movies that we watched for this episode was the distinct personalities shined like crazy. There were no characters that were the same. There were no characters that kind of there wasn't like a group of characters that you could really group together and say all of these characters were like this, you know, like, and for instance, where I found that different in Tokyo Story was that a lot of the family just kind of acted very similar. They were too busy in their lives for their grandparents, you know, or for their parents or whatever. And Yi, I did not find that to be the case. Everybody was very, very distinct in their personality, and that was very consistent throughout the movie. And I think that's why I felt like more than any other movie that we watched, like I was there, you know? So that's what I got to say.
I kind of disagree with you there.
Okay.
Because with Tokyo Story, yes, they were all bad to their parents / grandparents, but I still feel they had distinct personalities and characteristics.
Okay. Well, yeah.
Like the daughter was especially bad, you know, immediately asking for things after the grandma passes away, everything like that. The eldest son was just too busy with work to give attention to his parents.
To be fair, he was a doctor.
Yeah. bro. And also, this is kind of going off the tangent a little bit, but I felt so bad when the grandpa was like, I'm kind of honestly let down by my son. He's a doctor, but I found out he's only a small town doctor. What's that all about? Like, bro, come on.
Yeah, when they were all drinking and like talking about how disappointed in their
they
kids
are in their children. Like,
Yeah.
oh my God. But to bring it back to Yi, I think one of the most beautiful things is it is a lengthy film, right? It's about 3 hours. All of
Mhm.
Edward Yang's films are pretty long. But it's not just the length of time that you spend with these characters that I find beautiful. It's the intimacy that you spend with them.
Yeah.
There's a lot of time where we find ourselves alone with the character with no one else in the scene. Yang, we spend a lot of time with him. We spend almost exclusively time alone with Yang.
Yeah.
Him just being a cutie pie on his own, taking pictures of people.
Being a little prankster too with the little water balloon.
Yeah, dude. The daughter, we find her by herself a lot of the time too, like observing her friend's relationship.
Which I thought, but just like specifically about Yang, I thought that was very representative of, I think clearly to me, what that was trying to portray is that they're so wrapped up in their lives, they're not really paying attention to like this small child.
Exactly.
Which really hit home when Yang jumps into a pool by himself and we don't see him come back up. And I literally told Andreas, oh my God, did the kid die? Did he drown?
I also I thought he died too.
Yeah.
So
clearly that was like kind of the point. Is like this kid spends like too much time alone and does not have
supervision. Yeah, exactly. At all. He literally leaves school to go get film developed, which like I felt so seen.
Yeah,
but and then
representation.
Yeah. So like I said with the daughter too, she like we spend a lot of time just watching her watch her friend's relationship, and then she kind of wiggles into it, and then she wiggles out. Thank God she wiggled out, because imagine dating a dude in prison.
Yeah.
But the dad, even we spend a lot of time with him alone, and it's not even that we spend time with him alone. It's that we spend time with him in different environments, because even when he's like with his coworkers, it feels like he's alone.
Yeah.
When he is with his family, it feels like he's alone. When he goes to Japan with his first love or whatever, it feels like he's alone, because he's finding out all these things are not actually what he wants.
Yeah.
And I think that's so beautiful about this film, that you have the vast differences of the dad having essentially a midlife crisis, realizing nothing is fulfilling him in his life or anything like that. And
chilling with pigeons.
Chilling with pigeons, bro.
Yeah.
And
that
then
was a great moment.
You have Yang learning the beauty of the world.
Yeah.
I thought it was so beautiful how the whole like theme of taking pictures to see his perspective. I'll never know what you see. You'll never know what I see.
Yeah, all of his photos were the backs of people's head, because nobody's supervising this child.
Exactly.
Nobody's looking at
No one's
him.
looking. Literally, they're saying it.
Yeah, they're saying it right there.
But and they all look like album covers. I just want to say.
Yeah, very indie, like acid washed kind of.
Yeah, dude. It's just, I don't know. There's so many things. We haven't even talked about the brother who was like a scumbag, just concerned about money all the time, and like we haven't even touched on any of that. Or the grandma who's dying, who brings the whole story together. We haven't touched on any of that, and it's just so intricately. It's so well woven.
Yeah,
it comes together well.
It really does. It really does.
And it's just, I don't know. I think it's absolutely beautiful. I broke down multiple times while watching it. I cried 4 times. I cry a lot, guys.
Yeah, this is not the first time you've said you cried 4 times on
But I don't know. I just think I just thought it was beautiful.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. And I think that's another way that you can offer a certain amount of strength towards slice of life. Just because there's not necessarily a plot doesn't mean that you can't show character development.
That's the thing. You can show it so much better, because you don't have to worry about protagonist A getting to setting B to defuse said bomb or whatever. Like you're not worrying about them training for a big fight or like anything like that. It's just, here are the characters. Yeah. Here's their environment. This is their life. Right. And I just think that's amazing.
Sure. Yeah, I agree.
I'm always someone who gravitates to stories that really explore emotions and dynamics and things like that. And just, this is the best way to do it.
Agreed. Yeah, now, fair enough.
I want to segue to another movie I asked you to watch, and then I'm going to ask you a big question. Or not a big question, but point something out that I want to see if you noticed.
Yeah, we're going into Boyhood?
No, American Graffiti.
Okay, fair enough.
Boyhood actually contradicts what I'm about to say.
Fair enough. Fair enough. We'll save that to the end.
So American Graffiti, the story is high school kids, last day of freedom, whatever. They're all going to go on their separate ways, go to college, do whatever. Um, and this brings me to the point that I wanted to highlight. I've noticed a common theme that in Western slice of life, it's very not obsessed, but seems to gravitate towards shorter periods of time. Like I said, Boyhood completely contradicts this point to an extreme. um, Whereas Eastern slice of life is more large scale, long time period.
Right. A few weeks or months or
your years, even like movies like Drive My Car and things like that, where it's just really a long time. And I say Boyhood contradicts this, but like Richard Linklater's other slice of life stuff, like the Before trilogy, each one of those movies takes place in either one day or Before Sunset literally is real time and is 90 minutes of real time.
Wow.
So there are like exceptions to this like quote unquote rule that I'm making up.
Do the Right Thing takes place over a couple of days.
No, it's all one day.
It's all one
It's
day.
all one day.
No,
Yeah, it's one shift.
day?
It's one shift.
I thought
yeah,
it was 2 days. Oh
no, it's one shift.
I just him taking a shower. I guess
threw you off, right? But no, yeah. So I just think it's funny how that kind of organically became a thing, and maybe I've just watched too few films and my sample size isn't right, and I'm way off the mark here. But I think that ultimately comes down to cultural views on life, because slice of life is about life.
Yeah.
Slice of life films is how you view life, and I think you can say in Western culture the view on life is more immediate, now, instant gratification, yada yada yada.
Instant consequences too.
Exactly. Whereas in Eastern society, and granted, I've never been to an Eastern country, so
with a grain of sand, take
yeah,
this,
exactly, dude.
I don't know, whatever.
It seems from these films at least that it's more of a grand scale view. Life is a little slower, it takes time for things to happen and everything like that. And I just thought that was absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, I think that's probably more. I don't think you're wrong at all. I think that is like a cultural difference. I don't think that's how like the average, Eastern person typically sees their personal life. But if they wanted to represent their life, they probably would do it, or do a slice of life. They probably would do it over the course of a longer period. Whereas if I was doing a slice of life, I would probably, I've never directed things, so but I would probably do that over the course of like a day or two, because most of the crazy things that happen in my life take place over the course of a day or two, and then things get back to fairly, normal. So I don't know. We also generally Western, I guess specifically, I'm probably, I think Western, by the way, I think we're referring specifically to American. Not
in this instance, yeah, European. I'm not really including Europe or anything like that here.
Yeah, because I don't think that necessarily applies there. But in America, there's not like a whole lot of historical context or culture to really pull off of. The culture is always changing. And so your slice of life is what you have right now.
Yeah, exactly. So I just really wanted to highlight that.
Yeah.
But to actually talk about American Graffiti, once again, crazy that this is the type of movie we'd get from George Lucas if he didn't make Star Wars.
Yeah.
Side note, today or yesterday, for the first time ever, I saw a picture of George Lucas without a beard. Holy shit.
I never want to see that.
Honestly, not a bad looking guy.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't fold.
Yeah, good on him. Mr. Lucas.
Yeah. But I also find that Western slice of life a lot of the time is coming of age, and this is in a sense where Boyhood doesn't contradict what I'm saying. It's like high school age, or like, because even movies like Dazed and Confused, also a Linklater movie, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, you can say is slice of life, which is over a bigger scale of time, so once again contradicts what I was saying. But they really focus on coming of age, high school kid, discovering yourself, which Yi kind of works on, like discovering yourself and talks about that. But you don't really see Eastern slice of life films about that. It's more of, if anything, the various different points of life. I already mentioned Drive My Car earlier.
I think the closest thing that you could say in like Western media, again, talking specifically about America, I should probably just say American media,
Mm-hmm.
is like romance movies
Mm-hmm.
where that don't follow the trend of being coming of age. Now, granted, there's a crap ton of coming of age romance movies, but there's also a lot of just like adults, you know, who just got out of a marriage or maybe their career changed paths or something like that. And that's not slice of life, but you're right. I don't think you see a whole lot of slice of life that doesn't cover that. That's why I mentioned, like, I think romance is probably the closest adjacent thing that you could see almost being kind of like that.
Yeah, exactly. And that kind of brings me to my point. You talking about romance, where I want to ask you if you really think slice of life is a genre,
Mm-hmm.
or is it a subgenre, or some other category?
Well, I think that question is borderline impossible to answer
Mm-hmm.
because a genre is a useful means of categorizing, but is not a definite, like there's not specific boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Like there can be a romance movie that features a bomb going off, you know.
Yeah.
That doesn't make it necessarily an action movie, but it does make it more action-y. You know, I think that slice of life is more of a state of mind when you go into I think it's a philosophy.
It's a way of
No,
life.
it is a way of life. I think slice of life is not necessarily so much a genre, but more of an attempt to add more realism into your work when you're making a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Is this actually representative of what this group of people feels like they're going through on a day-to-day basis? Is this how they would accurately remember it?
Mm-hmm.
You know, if they were to go back in their memories and they were able to project that on a screen, would it look something like this, even if we were just cutting up the most exciting parts of their life?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that it is, for the sake of conversation, I think it is a useful term. I would say it's probably more of a subgenre than an actual genre because I think that slice of life falls pretty acutely into, at least typically, into like the drama slash romance kind of like overarching kind of
Mm-hmm.
genres. But to say that it's not a genre, I don't think that's accurate. To say that it's a whole genre in its own, I think that might be a little bit of a stretch.
I kind of agree with you where I don't think it's a subgenre because, you know, in our previous episode, we talked about stoner movies. That's a subgenre, specifically, like we said, a
Mm-hmm.
subgenre of comedy.
Yeah.
Slice of life isn't a subgenre of specifically one genre.
Mm-hmm.
It's not comedy. It's not specifically romance. It's not specifically drama. It can be any of those things. It's much more of a free flowing thing.
Because much like in real life, there's times where you're experiencing romance or
Mm-hmm.
you're experiencing comedic effect. You know?
Exactly. Exactly. And another thing I want to ask you is in this day and age of watching Subway Surfers with your videos and
By the way, I'm gonna start doing that to our TikToks.
as you
Start
should.
Subway Surfers on the bottom. See what happens.
Yeah.
Let me know what you think about it.
And in a time where we see movies being cut a lot faster, a lot more cuts in scenes, a lot more action, just more eye grabbing over prioritizing that over anything else. Do you think slice of life is something that can survive long term? I'm talking like 50 odd years from now type of deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I see no question about that because when so I looked through all of the like comments and reviews for the movies that you had me watch before I logged them on Letterboxd, and it was really interesting to see people's responses and what other movies they compared them to or how much this impacted them personally. um if you want to talk about the rise of like really quick paced content, there's also a rise of personalized content,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that slice of life fits very squarely in that niche. At the same time, not every audience is a TikTok audience, you know?
Right.
There are always going to be people that care about that and see the art in it. And so, yeah, I mean, are we going to continue to get that stuff out of like blockbusters? No, maybe not. Maybe, but probably not. But at the same time, there's never been a more there's never been a time where it was more accessible to get into this art yourself. And I think that the rise of indies, like, I think it would be really interesting. And I predict, I'll say this right now, that there's going to be like an indie streaming platform, if there isn't already, outside of YouTube, where people are going to start producing stuff like this for themselves because they see the art in it and they know that there's others that will see the art in it.
I think you just described Vimeo.
Yeah, well, oh, you're right.
You're
right. Yeah.
But I think more so, I want to ask you. Of course, there's people that are always going to appreciate it, but do you think those people are going to be kicked out of the market in a time where we've discussed this previously as well, where blockbusters are more catered to over other things? Yes, it's more accessible for people to make it and for people to watch it, but at the same time, do you think, on the grand scale of things, do you think you're going to see large budget versions of this?
No, I don't think there's going to be blockbuster slice of life movies. But I don't think that has to be the death of it, because I think there's a really big question right now that we may address in a future episode about what makes going to a movie theater worth it, for a given movie.
I got a lot to say about that.
yeah, that'll be a rant episode. But for the sake of slice of life, I don't think that we're gonna see big, production movies of it. But I don't think that's a bad thing. When it comes to slice of life, I think that it's important that fewer voices are in the room to dictate the direction of it, because it should not be watered down by multiple perspectives coming to a conclusion. It really should be very pointed, in my opinion, for it to be effective. And so for that reason, I don't think there's going to be blockbusters, but I don't think that it's dead, if that makes sense.
I agree with you. I essentially agree with you there. I don't really have much to add on to that. It's just, it's also something that can't be judged, you know? Anyways, so we should touch up on Boyhood a little bit, since I did make you watch it.
I think is appropriate
term. I can tell you we're not a fan. And it's not, listen, I love Richard Linklater. I think some of his stuff is, Before Sunset, I think is, you could argue, the best script to come out of the US in the 21st century.
Sure.
Boyhood is on the opposite spectrum. Also, I just want to point out that he's making another Boyhood-esque movie that's supposed to come out 20 years from now.
Oh my God.
Dude's going to be like 70 when it comes out.
Okay, so for those of you that don't know, the big gimmick with Boyhood was that it was filmed over the course of 12 years in real time with the same actors. God knows how he built those contracts so that they would come back. I was thinking about that the whole time. But my issue with Boyhood was that it's already so easy for slice of life movies to feel kind of aimless. And I think this was especially guilty of that. And given the fact that it did happen over the course of 12 years in real time, 12 real world years, you cannot necessarily know the acting chops of a child and how that will grow, because when you come towards the end of the movie, it's all about the young boy in the family, who's not as young anymore, obviously.
12 years older, in fact.
12 years older, in fact. And boy, it was a little rough. You're
underselling it, bro. Dude. You think I bet, bro, Richard Linklater was on set.
See your Letterboxd review, because I don't think you gave one. But,
no, so I actually didn't have time to rewatch this before we recorded this.
Sure.
But
I see why.
Yeah. But I bet Richard Linklater, he got the dailies back on set, and he was just watching it over and just thinking, fuck, dude, there goes my Oscar.
Yeah, dude, because like, fantastic idea on paper, right? Real like experimental stuff on paper, and it was experimental, but the issue was just the result. Like, I think it's a really cool concept, and I think that it could be done well, but unless you're paying for acting classes over the course of 12 years,
that should have been in the contract.
That should have been in the contract. I don't think you're going to get the results you're looking for.
Valid. I thought Ethan Hawke was great. I love Ethan Hawke.
Yeah, I'm a
So,
big fan of Ethan Hawke.
but
I'm a big Hawke guy.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of Boyhood either. I also think it's stupid to praise a movie on a gimmick, like being shot over 12 years. Um, so the fact that it essentially got a Best Picture nomination because of that is stupid. Also, I'll be the first to say that Oscars mean absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
I'm very anti-Oscar, but
which is unfortunate because according to our first episode, we're actually Oscar winners. So
yeah, so didn't mean anything to me. I still love Richard Linklater. I think the idea was beautiful. I think it's great that that kind of thing got funded to be made and was produced and is being produced again on double the time. But
well, and see, that's one of the reasons why I'm a little bit hesitant to shit on it too much, because I do think the movie turned out to be pretty garbage. However, I don't want that to discourage other people from trying something like this again. You know, like I don't want to shit on everything again. Like the concept was cool. It's just the result that turned out bad. But like, does that mean that a different cast, a different crew maybe could do it better next time? Maybe like, and like, I want to encourage always innovation and new ideas and things being thrown out there like that. Like I give him, I give him credit for like, that's a ballsy thing to propose to a studio, you know, with like no idea how it's going to turn out for over a decade. Like that's crazy. And I think it's really cool to try something like that. I just don't think it worked this time.
No, I agree. I really, another reason why I didn't watch it for this episode, because I just didn't want to sit through it again.
Yep.
But I appreciate the art of it.
Yep.
And I appreciate that it's being made, like we just said. And y'all should all go watch it anyways. Support this kind of thing, because if no one supports this kind of thing, we're never going to see this kind of thing be made again.
You can watch it on like 1.5 times speed though.
Well, don't do that. Don't do that. But anyways, that about covers everything I wanted to talk about.
Yeah. So now that we have gotten here officially, I guess, what is your answer to the question? You kind of talked about it a little bit, but officially to you, is slice of life a genre? And do you think that there's a future?
I don't think it's a genre. I don't think it's a subgenre. I think it's something completely unique and has its own identity. Because like I said, genres can fit into slice of life. I think it's an umbrella over a genre.
Again, it's a feel.
It's a feeling. It's a way of life. Slice of life is a way of life. But I think there is obviously a future for it. I think it's stupid to say there isn't a future for almost anything you can ask that question about when it comes to film or art. I do see the decline of it on, the forefront of studio films, obviously, but you are never going to run out of film students that are going to watch Ozu or Wong Kar-wai or Richard Linklater and be like, oh my God, this is what I need to do.
Yeah.
Because I'm literally one of those people.
Yeah.
So
Sitting next to one.
Yeah, there's a future for it. Are most people going to know about it? Probably not. But you know what? Go form your own opinion. Watch slice of life movies. They're a beautiful thing. This has been Sip of Cinema. I'm not holding my glass to cheers you at the end.
Yeah, I think that's super a bummer. But I do want to say it's our goal to give a recommendation.
Oh yeah.
So my personal recommendation from this list is gonna have to be Do the Right Thing, because I think it's the most relevant to anybody who's gonna be watching this podcast. And I think one of the more impactful for the average everyday individual.
Valid. From this list of movies that we've talked about today, my recommendation is going to be Yi Yi. I like Tokyo Story better. I think Yi Yi is more accessible for people.
Yeah, fair.
But my recommendation from off this list is going to be In the Mood for Love. It's my favorite movie of all time.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it eventually,
Alex.
Yeah,
we'll get there.
But yeah, that's it. This has been Sip of Cinema. Cheers to that.